All right, let's dig into a really critical debate happening in the tech diving community right now. Based on a brand new survey from the Business of Diving Institute, we're going to tackle a huge question. Is the way we currently handle rebreather training actually holding the entire market back?
So, here it is, the big question. Is our unit-specific training model a necessary safety standard, or is it a barrier to growth that we, as an industry, just can't afford anymore? Now, this isn't just some abstract debate. It directly impacts your student pipeline and, let's be honest, your bottom line.
To really get what's at stake here, we have to look at the problem first. Now, we all know the rebreather market has enormous potential, but new data is showing a pretty significant roadblock. It's stopping experienced divers from making that jump to closed circuit. And this number, well, it paints a stark picture. When non-rebreather divers were asked if they'd take a course in the next 5 years, a massive 66% said it was unlikely. Think about that for a second. That's 2/3 of your potential market saying, no thanks. That's a number that every single dive business owner should be looking at very, very closely.
So what's the hesitation? Well, the high cost of the unit itself, that's no surprise to anyone. But look at the other reasons here. The cost of repeated training and the requirement to get a full certification for every single unit. From a diver's perspective, they're seeing a path that looks fragmented, incredibly expensive, and really inflexible.
But here's the number that could change absolutely everything. When that same group was asked if a generic training option would make them more likely to sign up, a staggering 82.1% said yes. Wow. This isn't just a small shift in interest. This is a monumental, totally untapped market opportunity staring us right in the face.
And that massive potential is exactly what's fueling one side of this whole debate. It's a call to move towards a more generic, systems-based approach to training. The people who support this believe it's the key to unlocking the future of rebreather diving.
This quote from an instructor in the survey really just captures the whole philosophy perfectly. The argument is simple. The current model creates all these unnecessary hurdles that end up pushing customers away instead of inviting them into our world.
The people making this case argue that the core skills, things like bailouts, are pretty much universal. A generic approach would lower the financial and logistical barriers for everybody. One person made a really powerful analogy. We don't require a computer-specific open water course, right? So why are we doing it for rebreathers?
But of course, it's not that simple. The other side of the coin argues that the unit-specific model isn't a barrier at all. It's a critical, life-saving firewall. For them, this isn't about being stuck in tradition. It's about managing the extreme risks of diving a complex life support system. This quote just cuts right to the heart of the matter, doesn't it? The fear is that while units might be 90% similar, it's that 10% that's different. The devil in the details, that can lead to a fatal incident if a diver isn't intimately familiar with their specific machine.
And the crucial point here is that muscle memory saves lives. We all know this. A diluent flush on a JJCCR is just different than on a KISS Sidewinder, and generic training can't possibly instill those specific reflexes. Plus, for you as professionals, this is a huge deal when it comes to liability. Unit-specific training provides a clear, defensible standard of care.
Okay, so we've heard the arguments for growing the market, and we've heard the counter-arguments all about safety. But where do the people on the front lines, the instructors and the instructor trainers, actually stand on all this? Well, the survey data shows an industry that is deeply, deeply divided. And this chart just lays it out perfectly. You've got a majority of instructors, 52%, who disagree with moving to a generic model. But with 30% in favor and another 18% sitting on the fence, there's absolutely no overwhelming consensus here. The industry is very clearly at a crossroads. So, the arguments really boil down to this. On one side, you have the push for growth, arguing that transferable skills will expand the market for everyone. On the other, you have the defense of specialization, focusing on safety nuances, muscle memory, and of course, liability. It's a classic conflict between accessibility and risk management. So, after looking at the data, listening to both sides, and seeing just how divided the professional community is, we have to ask the most important question of all. What does this mean for your business and for your future? How do you navigate this landscape? This all builds to 4 key questions for your business. First, can you really afford to ignore that 82% of potential students? Second, how do you balance that huge opportunity against the very real safety and liability risks? Third, what's your plan for staying current and qualified yourself? And finally, what's your strategic position going to be? Are you going to be a deep specialist in one unit or a generalist across many? Ultimately, the whole debate boils down to this single question: standardization or specialization? Is our future going to be defined by a more accessible approach that unlocks massive growth, or by a continued intense focus on mastering specific units to ensure safety? There's no easy answer here, but one thing is for sure: the decisions made by professionals like you are going to shape the future of this industry.